All right. So good afternoon. My name is Ryan Seick with Harris Corporation. One of the reoccurring themes that we've had today is how important location is. And, when we look at this, you've got, oh, there you go. I'm going out right now. So we got LMR and LTE achieving the broadband future today. And what we're doing with this is, you have a basis of LMR that's out there. This is the lifeline of the industry right now. Very little data goes over that, 7 kilobits per second, right? This is slower than the data modems that we used to use with AOL and all the other things back in the day, and all the squawking and whatnot. So very limited amounts of data can go across an LMR channel. But you have the opposite problem of once you introduce LTE, right? LTE is a huge broadband pipe that allows you to throw a bunch of data down there, and how do you handle that? Right? So when you have this migration between a very slow, very narrow bandwidth to a very broad data pipe, what are some of those examples that are there? And location is one of those things that actually goes across an LMR channel today because it's very short, X, Y coordinates, very, here I am as a beacon. However, it's very underutilized today. So when you get to an LTE, you're going to have a bunch of locations, a bunch of data, multimedia, real-time high-definition video streaming, all those kinds of things coming across this data pipe. So how do we organize the chaos? How do we handle all that information? So some of the things we're looking at right now is you can bring enhanced situational awareness to market, to bear. Unified communications, visualized analytics, and also actionable intelligence. And these are all kind of buzzwords of things that are there, but I'll take an overview of what each of these is happening right now. And addressing these pain points, just because you're getting this information from the field, but what do you do with it, right? And if you enable someone over an LTE data pipe to add additional information, take a picture, take a video, biometrics, all those kinds of enabling use cases. How does that impact the lifeblood of the LMR channel, right? The voice communications where everything is done today. So if they need information, they query the dispatcher. They ask the dispatcher for information if they don't have a CAD system potentially in their vehicle. Unifying communications from the aspect of providing IP-based push-to-talk clients on smart devices. So enabling, like Jay was talking about earlier today, enabling that on a tablet, enabling that on smartphones, right? So offloading the communications network that's there to have additional flexibility. Visualizing analytics. This is something that is commonplace within the consumer markets, but when it comes to public safety, some of the forward-looking ones are taking advantage of this. And this is basically understanding of the sheer amount of data that's coming in and putting that into a dashboard or a portal, or understanding what's happening for trends as far as hotspots, patrol dispatches, predictive policing, all these kinds of technologies that are out there that can be taken advantage of. And this isn't future talk. This is stuff that's happening today. These are applications that are readily available, and I'll show you how we get to that in a little bit. And actionable intelligence. So this is actually saying, based upon the analytics that are coming in, where's my next crime going to be committed at, based upon these conditions that have happened in the past? Is it a weekend? Is it over a certain temperature? Certain weather condition, right? If it's cold outside, there's going to be less crime, right? That's just common sense. But from that perspective, is where do you stage your resources in order to take advantage of that? So I'm going to walk through a video here just real quick, and this is basically just kind of organizing the chaos, right? Broadband networks enabling this, and this is just something from a GIS perspective that you can look at. Some things that Harris is putting together right now is that identifying where location is of your officers, right? But tying into additional web services that can actually link out. This is Google Street View, for instance, to understand, is it a dirt road that he's responding to? Is it a gravel road, right? Is it muddy? Anything along those lines. Seeing exactly where they are and getting that updated information specifically for that hyperlocation as far as where that individual is. Tracking radios, tracking information. A lot of drone providers that are out there. This is a new technology that's coming into public safety. How do you handle that? Harris has an operation that allows you to do 3D modeling of critical infrastructure. So for instance, if you look at this here, this is a 3D model of a dam that was flown over to see if there's any flooding that's occurring. Anything along those lines for public safety issues. Public Works needs to look at, but having an actionable item that you can actually take a look at directly with the latest flyover, where you're not looking at a map from 2 years ago. Same thing with anything you're looking at from a neighborhood perspective. If you have an operational view, right? It might be something along the lines of a tornado has come through. You want to see what that neighborhood looked like beforehand. Is it 3 houses or 4 houses that were there before? Having the rendering come in where you can actually see directly within that operational view what's happening, or if it's a drug raid, anything along those lines. So giving it a kind of a technology perspective of this is information that is enabled over LTE networks. Okay, so a very huge amount of data that's coming through to enable these capabilities. And as we go through this too, there's operational aspects as far as, we'll go through actually one more here too. This is actually interior mapping. So we talked about before is how do you actually look at things that are operationally available to you. So this is actually a 3D model of an interior of a restaurant or a bar, for instance, where building inspectors could actually go out there, identify where the defibrillators are, right? Where the fire extinguishers are. But even from an operational perspective, if you had to perform a raid on this, we had a barricaded suspect situation down in Orlando not too long ago. Having an understanding of where the cover points are, where the actual entrances are, understanding where all that information is. This is all information on demand. Right, this is all stuff that's happened ahead of time, pre-plans, things that you're looking at where it's all readily available to you at your fingertips. And understanding, looking at these images where you can actually perform different information, but having that available. So as it goes through here, it has different information as far as what's being provided. But as we're looking at the amount of information that can come through an LTE data pipe, right? This isn't waiting around. This isn't something that you're looking at from a perspective of I need to go get this information, right? So this could very well be a fire marshal, this could be a building inspector, anything along those lines. Oh, there we go. Oh, did it stop there? It might have stopped, or it's catching up. Well, this is an interior for an insurance claim that they're looking at from a fire within a house. So I think the computer is actually, this is a video, so I think it's just, it's catching up here. So so with this, they're basically looking at, various aspects. We looked at prosecution as well. So for instance, if that was a room that was understanding of where somebody was actually, could have been murdered, could have been some incident happened, you can actually put the jury within that room, right? Without a flat file, without just a picture, you can actually put people within that room to increase prosecution rates and whatnot. So it actually helps with that information. Operational views as far as seeing where geospatial information such as multimedia. It could also be something along the lines of social media as well. So seeing where things are at, using that for publicly available information that's out there. I know some of the monitors or the social media monitoring companies have been engaged in some legal issues right now with that. But seeing where that information is located, overlaying that with your calls for service information as well. And as well as hotspot information that can actually be displayed on that as well. So you can actually provide those operational views. So when you look at this, all this information is essentially the data that you own, right? It's a gold mine of data that you're looking at. So when you look at this, every agency has their own gold mine, as I like to look at it, right? It's like how do you mine that gold? How do you get that operational view as far as what you're looking at, and what are you looking to get out of it, right? Because it's great to have these great databases of decades old of calls for service, but where's the patterns? Where's the trends? Where are the things you're looking at? Where can you predict the next thing to happen? That's all available, right? Directed patrols, operational perspectives as far as what you're looking to do. This is actually demonstrating a collaborative environment right now, is that, this could be enabled for an operation, a SWAT team, anything along those lines where you need to actually have multiple views of information that's there. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, different checkpoints that you're looking at as far as checking that information in. All this is being run through the same portal. So we talked about device agnostics, availability before that Stephen had mentioned, right? It's very important to have that because, locking into a specific ecosystem of devices going forward, you're looking to utilize those services that are out there. So whether you're choosing an iOS path or an Android path or a different ruggedized device, anything along those lines, you want to have access to these services, right? This is data that's being unlocked. You want to have the ability to disseminate that data out to those specific devices that are out there. So with this, it gives you the additional information as far as the operational perspective goes. This is integrating different information as far as calls for service from open portals that are out there. So it's looking at different things that we're pulling together and bringing that information together. And then this is the last thing I was talking about with the dashboards, where it's organizing all the chaos, right? It's bringing all that information together as far as where, who, what, when, hotspots, trends, that type of data where you have databases of information, decades of information. But how do you make sense out of that? What day of the year, for instance? What's the most responsive date that you're going to have? Where are the hotspots for directed patrols? Where do you want to dispatch those resources that you have today? What are your trending types of crimes and data and information that's out there? All that type of information is critical to a day-to-day operation, where you can even have dynamic roll calls as far as how you want to bring that information together, and also how you're going to handle the response to that specific organization. So when we look at this, mission critical push to talk, mission critical video, mission critical data, they're all key parts to capture the information that's out there, and they're all going to be contributing to the overall LTE play that's out there. So a lot of them are using voice communications now in order for you to have that information dissemination back and forth. What we're doing with this, though, is with LTE, is that you offload the voice capabilities because people have access to the data now, right? So the transit information, critical infrastructure, utilities, all harmoniously working together to have that information, creating that content, having access to that content over the same network that's there, right? We talked about quality of service just before with Jeff's presentation. All of these additional users that'll be put onto those networks to figure out who gets that quality of service, right? Who gets that priority, and understanding how that all comes together. So applications and partner ecosystems as well. This is something that's critical in nature, just because the interoperability, and you hear this over and over again today, interoperability is critical to having this work. The fact that there's a bad word in this industry called fragmentation, right? You get a bunch of different CAD vendors that don't talk to each other, a bunch of different information that's out there, a bunch of repositories that don't talk to each other. APIs are necessary from that. So as you move from LMR, the data routers that are out there, to smart devices, and then into the overall aspect of having a cloud ecosystem, right, an application ecosystem, having the ability to have platforms talk to each other, interfaces that talk to each other, right, the seamless information and passing of information or access of information is all it sounds really complex at this time, but when you look at the fundamental aspect of where we're going, right, this is the time, this is the evolution of this market. It's not the revolution, it's the evolution of this market. So this is how, if there's one industry that's ripe for disruption, this is it, right? Just because, it has been behind the times in order to bring this information together. Overlaying all that information, obviously, is the cybersecurity aspects of what happens. How do you protect all that information as it's being transferred from the field, gathered, analyzed, the output of information that comes from that. So, and we talked about this before, but when you understand the data, each of the data points captured has a direct impact on the previous points of data that's been captured. So when you look at that, right, the previous call for service that happened on the previous shift, right, the response effort to a specific location for a firefighter, what premise hazard warnings are located at that location. You bring all that information together to really provide intelligence to the field, to the operatives that are out there, to understand, what are they getting into? Who's behind that door before they go knocking on that door. All that type of information is available and just has to be visualized and brought together, and that enables it through the LTE systems that are out there. You're collecting more data, you're gaining more intelligence, you're outputting more intelligence and providing that direction directly to the field for operative aspects to take advantage of. So one thing we're looking to bring together here, when you have a complete end-to-end solution, right? Data aggregation is really what we're talking about here. So you talk about different agencies providing intelligence, for having an agency in Kentucky talking with an agency, in Washington here, right? If I wanted to query certain aspects, there's NLETs, there's certain FBI databases that are there, but there's also additional notes that happen from officers that are capturing observations that they had, and they may not make a part of that report that's out there. So how do you have that information that's searchable with the sheer amount of data that's collected, right? If you look at Google from a search capability, right? Their whole mission is to capture all data from the beginning of time and have it searchable through their single bar, right? So that technology is available for agencies to use as well, right? I'm not saying a Google search is publicly available, but they have the ability to search that information from a very large database or multiple large databases in order to have discovery of information that's out there. And it should be as simple, right? It shouldn't be this very complex query that has to have multiple, Boolean expressions and things like that to find that information. If I want to find somebody's name and their social security number, give me everything I want to find out about that individual, right? Or it's a simple scan of their thumbprint with a biometric and all of a sudden it comes back, right? That type of information, it should be that simple, and it is. It can be, right? It's just an enablement that needs to happen within the industry here. So the API for shared partner data resources. So that when we talk about this, the application product interface, having the ability to have one system talk to another system, right? The siloed information is something that's very, very old, right? Very archaic. The sharing of information is where the power's at. So having this lockdown silo of information that's there, it's great. Have your agency have their firewall and everything else with shared access out for maybe not all the information, but at least let them know that you've got a hit of information that joining agency is looking for, so that they can call you and actually find out what's there, right? You don't have to share it, but at least let them know that they have a query from that perspective. Our intel and delivery on demand. When you look at this, it shouldn't be this closed environment as far as, understanding, saying this is only the data that I have and I'm going to keep it. the way to really blow this thing open is to really have the availability to have intelligence delivered, right, on demand, when I need it, not something that has to happen or I got to wait 2 weeks for because I got to run a report. It's got to be available right now when I need to have it. Having advanced analytics applied to this, and then actually having access to the data stores that are on your premises today, right? So CAD, the record system, the jail management system, all that kind of history of information that's out there. That's all the gold that's out there that needs to be data mined, and also have the ability to throw additional analytics around there, because that gives you the ability to actually have that intelligence, the turning data into intelligence and providing that information out for what's there. So when you look at this, the end-to-end solution from the very beginning to the very end, it's transforming the volumes of data, right, to enable additional decision-making to occur, providing that information to the decision makers so that they can make those quicker decisions, but also providing recommendations on what action should be taken, taking it a step further. Facilitating information sharing across a diverse agency. It might be multiple agencies talking about, what they need to have access to or information to. But also having a scalable architecture, and I know Stephen talked about this earlier as well. Having the ability for the sheer amount of volume of data that's there, right? If you stay with an on-premises solution, right, you're going to have racks and racks of servers and hard drives and things like that in the back end that you're going to pay more for to maintain. They might go down, you might lose data, the data recovery aspects, the cost to go along with that. The scalability that LTE just by itself, by its inherent nature, is you have to be ready for that, right? And it's here now. This isn't future talk that we're talking about. It's here now that you need to be looking at. And then analyzing, just decades old of agency data and repurposing it to work for you now. So, there might be something the clue from a certain location, 123 Main Street, and tell me everything I need to know about that, right? And you can run a query today, but how do you augment that with additional information as far as, the additional data that's publicly available on the website, right? What kind of posts from social media were located around that address, right? All that kind of information comes together and is accessible through that today. So, So looking at how we break these things down, moving the topic is really from LMR to LTE and achieving that broadband technology today. When you look at the migration from the voice communications, right, and everything is going through the voice communications, and it has to work. Every time you hit that button, it's expected to work. LTE is no different. When you move to the data aspect, you're not looking for a request denied or a timeout or something along those lines. It has to be something where it's available to that user when they're asking for it right away. So when you have this information, you got to have the ability to have or rely on it just as much as you would when you go to your shoulder or go to your radio in order to have that information available to you, even if you're reaching a dispatcher. So thank you very much. Actually, I have 2 minutes. If there's any questions, time for questions or one question. If anybody has one. Okay. Thank you.